Gopi Janavalabha Girivaradhari Gopi Janavalabha Girivaradhari Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Hare Krishna, dear Vaishnavas. So we're reading from Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 3, Chapter 23, Verse 50. Likhantyan mukhi bhumim Padanakha manishriyam Uvachalalitam vacham Nirudhyashru kalam shanaich Likhantyan mudhi bhumim Padanakha manishriyam Uvachalalitam vacham Nirudhyashru kalam shanaich Likanthan hamakim bhumim Padanaka manishriya Uvachalalitam vacham Nirudhashru kalashanai Likanto hamakim bhumim Padanaka manishriya Uvachalalitam vacham Nirudhyashru kalam sanai Likantan homohi bhumam Padanakha manishriya Uvachalalitam vacham Nirudhastru kalam sanai Lukantandhamukhi bhumim Padanaka manishriya Uvachalalitam vacham Nirudhyashru kalam shanai Likhanti, scratching. Adamukhi, her head bent down. Bhumim, the ground. Padam, with her foot. Nakha, nails. Mani, gem-like. Shriyam, with radiant. Uvacha, she spoke. Lalitam, charming. Vacham, ascend. Nirudhyam, suppressing. Ashrukalam, tears. Sanaich, slowly. Translation. She stood and scratched the ground with her foot, which was radiant with the luster of her germ-like nails. Her head bent down. She spoke in slow yet charming accents, suppressing her tears. Purport. Devahuti was so beautiful that her toenails appeared just like pearls, and as she scratched the ground, it appears as if pearls had been thrown on the ground. When a woman scratches the ground with her foot, it is a sign that her mind is very disturbed. These signs were sometimes exhibited by gopis before Krishna. When the gopis came in the dead of night and Krishna asked them to return to their homes, the gopis also scratched the ground like this, because their minds were very disturbed. Namo Vishnupadaya Krishna Prishna Bhatari Shrimati Bhaktivedanta Swami Iti Namine. Namaste Saraswati Devi Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschatya Dashatarine. Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shivasidi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda. Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Vancha Kalpatarubhyascha Kripa Sindhubhya Cha Patitanam Pavanabhyo Vaishnavabhyo Namo Namaha. Okay, so today is actually a very auspicious day. Today is disappearance day of Srila Vakreshvara Pandit. And I thought it would be very important to speak about him. And I'm just wondering if anyone know much about Vakreshvara Pandit. Vakreshvara Pandit, yeah. So it is actually not that much we know about him. We know that he was an associate of Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. And before I go into, reading about him and tell about him, I just wanted to tell that little story about Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and why is it so important, why those days are so important, and why we have to, not like have to, but we should glorify Krishna devotees. So we know that Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, he was born in Navadvip, and in his early days, he was trying to preach holy names, but people were very dismissive and sometimes critical to him, and they were not taking him serious. And so because of that, Lord Chaitanya thought, okay, I should go and take sannyas, because there was a custom in India, they were very respectful to sannyasis, and so that would give him that authority, so then people will finally hear his message. So that's what he did. He left, and he went to get sannyasa. And he was absent from Navadvip for a very long time. He never returned back. He didn't return back for a long time. And at some point, he wanted to go back, and he wanted to see his mom, and he wanted to visit visit Mother Ganga there again. And it was a very kind of quiet visit. So he was staying with one of his devotees there, and he asked him, please keep it quiet that I'm here. I don't want everyone to come. I just came for my private little visit. But of course, it was not possible to keep it quiet that Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu returned back to Navadvip. And so all these people, in areas around Navadvip, all people that knew him, and they felt like there was a big change in their heart, because once he left, they realized that, we had him all this time with us, and we were not taking him serious, and we were critical and dismissive, and and now he's coming back, and they all wanted to go and see him. And so all these people flooded Navadvip, and they were coming. There is like a huge description how they were trying to get there and cross the Ganges, because not many of them could swim. And so, so to make it a little bit short, the narration of the story, once they actually came and wanted to see him, Lord Chaitanya actually disappeared, and no one knew where he went. And they were chanting holy name really loud from their heart, hoping that he would come, but he wasn't coming. And so they were getting very anxious, and where did he go? And then eventually some information came that Lord Chaitanya left, and he's in a nearby village, so they went back again across the Ganges and went to that place, and he was there with his associates participating in kirtan. And so all these people would come to him. And there was one man there who came up to him, and he said, I was always so critical of you. And especially I was critical of your devotees. And I would think, who can be a devotee in Kali Yuga? And now he's like, what should I do? How can I rectify myself? And so Lord Chaitanya gave him that analogy. He said that if you drink poison, it's going to make you sick. And but if you start drinking nectar or medicine, that's how you get well again. So he said, in the same way, when you criticize those who love Krishna, it is like drinking poison for your spiritual life. But when you chant the glories of the devotees and appreciate them with your words and your actions, it's like drinking medicine, like drinking nectar. So he gave him that simple instruction that we can all utilize. And it is very interesting because he says that chant the glories of the devotees of the Lord, appreciate them with your words and actions. Yeah, there is two things, words and actions. And yeah, because I had that little experience of, when we're glorifying devotees. I recently went to Jagannath Puri. There was a little retreat that was organized by Dhanurdhar Swami. He was the leader of that. And it was maybe 50 of us in there, so it was not such a huge group, but it was quite tight, but, enough devotees there. And it was one of those things that really impressed me and struck me, and I don't think I experienced it that much before, because Dhanurdhar Swami, he had this, unique relationship with lots of devotees in that retreat. He knew them, and he just loved always glorifying their qualities. And he would just come up to you and he would say, do you know such and such? He's just so amazing. He distributes prasadam so well, and he would just start telling you, and the first moment you're just feeling a bit, awkward because you can't add anything because you don't know the person. But then the more he goes with it, and you just think, oh my God, this is just wonderful, because he just goes and he makes people friends by that. He introduces you to other people, and he finds these little things, or big things, qualities, and he just makes a big deal out of it, he just tells everyone about it. And it's just beautiful. It was amazing to see that, instead of like noticing the faults, because none of us is perfect, we all have something there. But he was meditating on these beautiful qualities of other devotees. And, I went there without my family. I was just there by myself, but I went with my father. And that was also an interesting experience for me because I was in a different role, even though I'm all grown up in that. But because I didn't have my kids and I had my father with me, so I kind of was like a child all over again. And I could see that Maharaj knew that, my father had affection for me. I'm his daughter. And so he would, when he talks to my dad, he would start and tell him, oh, look at your daughter, she's like this and like that. And I know that he's saying that just to please him, and that was just so amazing to see that culture, that he was trying to build this relationship, he was trying to make people feel appreciated, feel noticed, that I see you, you can do this very well, I appreciate you, I value you. So this is appreciating Vaishnavas with our words, and it is something that not always comes, we can't imitate it, but at the same time we have to practice, we have to start somewhere, we can try to notice these good qualities in others and tell them, hey, I really like how you do this, or I really appreciate that. And then also he's saying about actions. Lord Chaitanya is saying, appreciate devotees with your actions. And we know that in Nectar of Instruction there is the verse that describes 6 loving exchanges between devotees, which are taking prasad together, exchanging gifts, and revealing your heart and confidentiality. So those actions seem quite easy and like pretty basic things, just eat prasad together, give gifts. But at the same time, if we look at the state of society these days, we can see that it is not that easy, really. Even like if we just look at gifts, how many times, you go to the birthday parties, it's become very popular lately, especially with kids' birthday parties, and you're like, oh, what should we get? Let's just give him money, because then he can go and get himself what he wants. And it's a nice, logical kind of thing. But really what it is that, oh, I don't have time, and then I have to really know the person, I have to put my thought in there, and drive and get it, and it's an effort. Yeah, it's a really big effort. So it is easy just, okay, I'll give you money, I've done my part, and then you go get what you want. And I don't even want to know what you want, it's just, I mean, yeah. And then even with like revealing our heart, it is such a not simple thing to do, because all of us have friends, yes, and can you really say that you know your friend through and through? because we often meet and we spend some dates together. We go eat something and we discuss things, and we may know what's happening, where they went, their career choices, or what's happening with their husband maybe, or I don't know, we talk about things. But do we really know what's going on in the heart of your friend, what they went through, how they're living their life, It is not an easy thing, and I've been doing Lifeline for a while now, and I can hear when people call, they just want someone to listen to them. Sometimes they think they want solutions, but they don't really want solutions. They're just looking for someone who can listen. It is such a skill just to be able to listen. When someone reveals their heart to you in confidentiality, it is not that simple just to make that environment for them, to hold that space for them so they feel comfortable to tell you what's going on, because oftentimes it is uncomfortable to hear someone is in pain, someone is struggling with something, and we jump in and we're trying to solve it for them because, oh my God, this is bad, and we don't know, we want to solve it, we want it to end because we feel uncomfortable sitting there listening about it. But sometimes that's what person need, so we're talking about these loving exchanges, which seems, we do that. But really, it is not so easy because we have to survive in this world. Like I've realized that with everything I have going on, I might only have energy for a few friends, because you constantly have to invest in there. You have to find time, you have to have resources for it. And it's interesting how Srila Prabhupada was also showing it to us with his example. We know that Shuddhakirti Prabhu, he visited lately, and he was telling this beautiful story. I might narrate it with some, miss some details, forgive me for that, but I remember the essence of it. So he said that in the early days, they went with Srila Prabhupada to Vrindavan, and the temple wasn't built yet, and there was just few disciples there with Prabhupada, and he would go to have his lunch. So he would go to the place where Yamuna was cooking, and he would just sit on the floor, and Yamuna would be also there cooking on the floor, rolling chapatis and serving him food, And Prabhupada would sit and, eat, and then one day he told Shuddhakirti, come and sit with us. And Shuddhakirti was, oh, no, that's okay, Prabhupada, I'll just eat with all other devotees later. And Prabhupada was like, no, come and eat. You're exchanging of prasad. Come eat with us. So Shuddhakirti Prabhu came, and he's like, and I sat down, and Jamuna quickly organized my plate, put me some sabjis, some chapatis, and we're eating, and just talking, And then once they finished eating, then Prabhupada asked him, so how was your meal? Did you like the prasad? He's like, oh yeah, it was amazing. And he said, well, now you have to cook for Yamuna. So that is that exchange, and it's just so beautiful to hear, that closeness day, that absence of, okay, this is Prabhuji, this is Mataji, we're all sitting, this is sannyasi here, what is going on, they're all sitting together and eating, and now he's telling Shuddhakirti he has to go cook for, it's like, but it is not about him going and cooking really. It is the fact that this is the relationship Srila Prabhupada wanted us to have with one another. So we exchange, that service, because ultimately that is what it is, I was watching Damodar Maharaj, and that's just mood of that service. He's trying to see, how can I notice that person? How can I make them feel special? So, yeah. And it is require lots of resources. It's not simple. We oftentimes just do small talk. Yeah, we see each other and we go around and we just do small talk without getting deep in there. But at the same time, it is our responsibility to find those people in our life. We can't make those relationships with everyone, obviously, because it's impossible. And some people click, others don't. That's a natural thing, but we have to have a few, one or two, that we can really just be open and honest, because without that, it's very difficult to progress in our life, in our spiritual life. So that's what he was saying. Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu said, simply use your mouth for drinking the nectar of God's names and speaking your appreciation of his devotees, and never criticize. And very soon you will see Krishna. So on the days like that, on the disappearance days of Acharyas and Vaishnavas, we have that opportunity to remember them, to sing their glories. And it is said that if Akreshwar Pandit is remembered, that it would purify the whole universe every time we talk about him. So, so like I mentioned before, there is not much actually you can find about Vakreshwar Pandit. There is some information, of course, on Google, and so I did a little bit of digging in the time that I had. So I'll read some of the things. So Sri Vakreshwar Pandit, he took birth in the village of Guptipara, near Triveni. And I also read somewhere that it was only like across the Ganges from Navadvip, but I'm not very familiar with Indian landscapes, so I don't know. So Sri Vakreshwar Pandit was present with Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu during his pastimes in Navadvipa, and after his acceptance of sannyasa, Lord Chaitanya acceptance of sannyasa, he also accompanied him to Jagannath Puri, and he stayed there with him. Vakreshwar Pandit was very close to Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya, and apparently they knew each other since they were children. So from that information we gathered that he was much older than Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. So we don't know much more, but we know at least that's approximately his age. He was much older. And then we also know that the glories of Lord Chaitanya, they are in his dancing and his chanting. And by that dancing, by that Sankirtana movement, he wanted to deliver all living entities. That was his method. And sometimes we don't think dancing is something very important, do we? It's like, we might think that building temples are important and, having a serious position or money, that's important. But Vrindavan Das Thakur, he says that no, the dancing of the servants of Lord Chaitanya with their hands in the air is so powerful that not only all of the problems in this world, but also in the heavenly planets, all the disturbances get demolished. And he says that when Krishna devotees dance in kirtan and they step their feet on the ground, that's how they purify the earth. Not just purify, but it kind of rid it of all the disturbances. And with their glances, they rid all the directions of the disturbances. And with their hands in the air, that's when the heavenly planets get their benefits. And it's interesting, we could link it here to the verse that we were just reading about Devahuti, because she was very disturbed, like it says that she had disturbed mind. And unfortunately, we know that it is such a ongoing, what would you call it, problem or issue, or it's an open thing, because people in this world always, looking for peace of mind. If we could just have peace of mind, it would have been just so wonderful. I remember someone was saying how Queen of England, she passed recently, someone gifted her Bhagavad Gita, and then she said, wouldn't it be so marvelous if we could just give all our worries and Krishna would deal with everything? Because yes, we know that there is three main disturbances in material world. We get disturbed by body and mind, by other living entities, and natural disasters. There's those three. And out of those three, the disturbance that comes from body and mind, especially from mind, is the strongest. And most of the time, as you're getting older and older, you start to realize more and more, it's all in your head. Because even if you have a good mindset, anything that comes across to you, you can manage it somehow or another. But once your mind gets disturbed, it's become very difficult. And in Bhagavad Gita it is explained that all we do in being in material world is that we're trying to get what we want, because material world there's duality in there. So we're trying to work for something we want, trying to make everything we can to get what we want and avoid something we don't want. So that exists in our head. Because the actual, events, they're neutral. Things happen. But this is how we take them, our perspective of looking at that situation, depending on what we want or don't want, make us feel like, these events are good or these events are bad. And we try so hard to control this anxiety, this worry that we have. There is so many psychological practices, and they're all about controlling your stress. And we know that stress is one of those things that destroy you through and through. It doesn't give you peace of mind, and you lose your vitamins, you lose your health, you lose everything through stress. Sometimes you think, oh, something happened to me, I might be really sick, I'm feeling dizzy, I'm feeling, I don't have memory, I can't sleep, but no, it's just stress. Your physical body might be okay. And even we know that it's interesting, special forces, when they train their soldiers, they have a really excruciating training there. They go in the bushes, there's some, I don't know, month, 2 months, and they put them through all this, training, and they trying to, some people say break them or whatever, but actually they give them certain exercises. They know that their body going to withstand it as long as they have enough resilience. So it is something you get over years. You start to realize that if you put your mind to certain things, if you can, your body will do it. It is all about your mental strength, in fitness or anywhere. We know that if you have determination, I'm going to do 20 push-ups, you will do it. Your body will do it, So we usually always break first in our mind, So it's just, I think I went a bit too much into that. But the point there is that we know that at the end of the day, Krishna is controlling everything. He says in Bhagavad Gita that I'm controller, I'm your best friend, and I'm the ultimate enjoyer. So being devotees, we try to maintain that attitude. We know that, yes, we're trying to control as much as we can our life. We're trying to plan everything. That's me here. I'm very meticulous about planning. If I need to get somewhere, everything has to be planned ahead of time, otherwise it does my head. But the reality is that we all hang by the thin air, because it only takes one person to fall asleep while they're driving, or something just happen, and all your plans just gone, and it's a reality of it. And we get in these situations in our life and we realize, I've been planning and trying to control it, but actually there's not much I can control. It's all like in Bhagavad Gita, Krishna says, he shows to Arjuna that all these people already been killed. It's already been happened. But he's just giving us an opportunity. Okay, you can be a part of it. You can, do your service. So that's what we try to do. But we're trying to maintain this understanding that Krishna is our best friend, and he knows what's best for us. And in this way, we're trying to get this peace of mind, which until we get to the point of liberation, it's pretty hard to achieve, But nevertheless, that's what is explained here, that once you actually dance with your hands in the air, that just dancing in a kirtan does that. It nullifies all these disturbances. So this is why dancing is so important. And among all the devotees of the Lord Chaitanya, Vakreshwara Pandit was the chief. He was the chief dancer. He was a great devotee and one of the most loving associates of Lord Chaitanya. And his special quality was how he danced so beautifully. But the beautiful dancing of Vakreshwara Pandit was not just in the movements that he was making. It was the mood he had, because it was expression of his love when he was dance. And we know that about kirtan. Kirtan is not about being a good dancer or a good kirtanier. Because it is ultimately about loving Krishna or having an intent to love Krishna. Yes, we can't say that we love him yet, but at least we have that intent. And we know those examples of Hanuman, for example, that's how he was singing for Lord Ramachandra, and when he started singing, everyone was like, oh my God, he was not musically pleasant, maybe, but Lord Chaitanya's heart was absolutely melted. Lord Ramachandra's heart was melted because there was so much love and devotion in that singing. And we also know Aindra Prabhu, he created these beautiful tunes that he was singing. And those tunes are not just ragas and music that put together and make you feel something, It was also his expression of his taste and his relationship with Krishna. And that's why, even though we might not be purified yet completely, but we can feel sometimes in a kirtan, if person is really sincere, we get that reflection in our heart. We feel that there is we start to share that emotion there. And it makes perfect sense, because the essence of Srimad Bhagavatam is that we need to please Krishna, and we can only please him with our love, because Krishna has everything else. There's nothing we can surprise him with or get him something he doesn't have. So, yeah, so in this way, when we dance, every movement of our body, our hands or legs or whatever we do, the rhythmic move, that's an offering to Krishna. That is like a meditation. So we're trying to please him with it. So in this way, Vakreshwara Pandit, he was always absorbed in separation of Krishna. And he was crying and dancing in this way. So Lord Chaitanya favored Vakreshwara Pandit. So when he would want him to dance, he would just glance at him, he would look over at him, and Vakreshwara Pandit would start dancing. And Lord Chaitanya would run to him, and he would embrace him, and he would start dancing with him, and he would feel so overwhelmed, he would start singing. And so they described that when Vakreshwara Pandit was dancing, Lord Chaitanya would be singing. And Vakreshwara Pandit would say to Lord Chaitanya, "You give me 10,000 Gandharvas and let them sing while I dance, then I'll be very happy." And the acharyas, they comment that Gandharvas, they can actually sing continuously for many, many, many days. That's their body is designed for that. And Vakreshwara Pandit was always disappointed, because, well, how long can one person sing? You can sing for a few hours maybe. Some people can only sing for half an hour. And then you gotta take a break, and he would go, "What, that's all you can do?" Why can't you just carry on singing? Because he was not on that bodily platform. So again, we're talking about, this is completely different levels. So he could dance for 72 hours, at a time. And so Lord Chaitanya replied, "I only have one wing like you, but if I had another one, I would fly into the sky." So such was the dancing of Vakreshwara Pandit. It is also described that he was an incarnation of Aniruddha, and it also described that Tungavidya, who is very expert in the arts of singing and dancing, that she was also manifested through Vakreshwara Pandit. Which is interesting point, because sometimes devotees wondering, how is it possible as one person there is so many people manifested through them? So is it one or is it another? Is it Tungavidya or is it... And I just heard Madhavananda Prabhu that he was saying that sometimes, we may have a Shakti of a certain personality, if we meditate on them, be present, or different devotees can be present in one person at the same time. So yes, coming back to that story where Lord Chaitanya went back to Navadvip, and he was meeting with all these devotees there. There was one particular person who was very shy to come in front of Lord Chaitanya. And that was Devananda Pandit. He was a scholar and he was a teacher of Srimad Bhagavatam. But because he happened to hurt a heart of a devotee named Srivas, so he could not understand the true meaning of Srimad Bhagavatam. He didn't have that bhakti, he didn't have the love. And he was a very good person, he had a very high values, he was very clean, he was very self-controlled, and he actually gave a celibacy vow when he was only like 6 years old, so he was almost like sannyasi, and he was reciting Bhagavatam every day. But he didn't have, because he could not understand and appreciate devotees, his Srimad Bhagavatam was very dry, and he did not have that love for Krishna. And so one day, Srivasa Pandit, he came to listen to his Srimad Bhagavatam, and while he was listening, because his heart was pure and he had Krishna Bhakti, so when he started listening Bhagavatam, he started exhibiting ecstatic symptoms, and he started crying, and he started rolling on the ground, and all the students that were present there listening from Devananda Pandit, they were a bit disturbed and annoyed. I don't know if you heard, sometimes children comes back from school and they say, we're trying to listen, and then this one person always makes trouble and fights and we can't learn, and they get annoyed at that. So that's how they felt, like, okay, we came here and this person doing this is wasting our time. So what they did, and they dragged him out. They dragged him out of the place, and just left him outside. And even though Damodara Pandit didn't actually do it himself, but he didn't stop them. And it is described that, the guru didn't have that bhakti, and so his disciples didn't. And after some time, when Srivas Pandit came to his senses and he realized what happened, and he felt very embarrassed. He felt embarrassed and he felt unappreciated and hurt. And it's interesting, sometimes people think that pure devotees don't feel much because they're so out there, liberated or whatever. They should not feel hurt. But actually they do feel hurt, and they hurt more than we do. Because as our heart become more and more purified, this is when we actually can start love, like experience real love for anyone. It goes like in positive, it's a positive relationship between, loving Krishna and loving or other living entities. Because in material world, our love is always contaminated by lust. And in this way, there is difference between love and attachment. Attachment is when we think that the person I'm attached to is supposed to make me happy. He is the source of my happiness. And that's why I have a specific understanding what is that person meant to do and how he meant to act. And if he doesn't, then my happiness is at stake here. So then I start to manipulate, I start to get angry, I start to, retaliate, and that's not very loving, isn't it? It's a bit abusive and suffocating if you think about it. But the more we become pure and the more we connect with Krishna, Krishna becomes the source of that happiness. So then the people that we love, we can actually love them for who they are. We can let them be, because our happiness doesn't depend on them anymore. We appreciate them for who they are. We don't try to make them or mold them in something we want them to be. And in this way, their heart become very gentle, and they can love more and they can hurt more. But the interesting point with them that they deal with that pain differently. They take shelter in holy names, in Krishna, and they're very compassionate. Even though they might feel hurt, yes, they still have feelings, it's all still there. But it's just in a different way to how we process these things. So in this way, Devananda Pandit offended Srivas Pandit, and Lord Chaitanya knew about that, and he was very angry. And years ago when Lord Chaitanya, before he got the sannyas initiation, he was still in Navadvip, and he went and he heard Devananda Pandit reciting Srimad Bhagavatam. And he said very loud, so that people can hear, he said, he knows nothing about Srimad Bhagavatam. He shouldn't be even speaking the scripture. So in this way he was rejected by Lord Chaitanya, because he said that he speaks Bhagavatam, but Bhagavatam is not just the book Bhagavatam, it's also a person Bhagavatam, so you can't appreciate one without another. And in this way Lord Chaitanya rejected him, and all the Vaishnavas also kind of and even though Devananda Pandit was there, he heard what Lord Chaitanya said, but he didn't do anything about it. It didn't really touch him anyhow. So he had the personality of Bhagavatam standing right there in front of him, but he didn't recognize him. And so after that, Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, he went to get sannyas, and he left Navadvip. And at that time, Devananda Pandit, he met Vakreshwar Pandit. And Vakreshwar Pandit was personification of that love for Krishna. And just like we were discussing, the heart of a pure devotee. He was very gentle, he was very humble, and very respectful to everybody. And even though, yes, he knew that Lord Chaitanya rejected him, and that all devotees rejected him, and that Devananda Pandit didn't do anything when Lord Chaitanya told him, but still, he felt that compassion towards him. He saw that there was some potential in there. And so he was really nice to him, Vakreshwar Pandit. And because of that, Devananda Pandit, he developed attachment to him. And he started serving him. Because Vakreshwar Pandit would go dancing And there would be all these crowds of people around him. You can imagine what it's like in India when you have crowds of people everywhere from all directions. And he would be standing there and protecting, dancing over Vakreshwara Pandit, making sure that he has space, that no one is impeding there. And if he would be in ecstasy, starting to fall over, then he will catch him. And he would clean his body with his hands, and he would put the dust from his body on his body. And so in this way, through association with Vakreshwara Pandit, he also invited him to stay in his house. Devananda Pandit invited him to stay. And so he was just serving to him with that appreciation and that humility. And through that association, he developed faith in Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. And so when Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu returned back, as we were describing, to Navadvip, and he was seeing all these devotees, and Devananda Pandit, he remembered how Lord Chaitanya rejected him like this, chastised him. And he was very shy, he didn't want to go, he was scared to go. But Lord Chaitanya saw him, and he said, you come, and he sat him next to him, and he said, because you've been serving Vakreshwara Pandit, and a pure devotee of Krishna always have Krishna in his heart. And because he has Krishna in his heart, all the holy places are always present where the pure devotee is. And so being in association with Vakreshwara Pandit completely eradicated and purified all your offenses, all your illusions, and that's why now, Lord Chaitanya accepted him, and he was very pleased with him. And so, so he was sitting next to him, and then Devananda Pandit asked him, how should I speak Srimad Bhagavatam to others? Because that's all he did. That was what he was good at. That was his thing. He was a teacher of Srimad Bhagavatam. So he's like, please tell me, how should I, speak Srimad Bhagavatam? What should be my mood? And Lord Chaitanya told him that every part of Srimad Bhagavatam, from beginning to the end, there is only one subject, the love of Godhead. And only love gives pleasure to Krishna, nothing else. And it pleases Krishna the most when you love his devotees. So always explain Srimad Bhagavatam in this way. Yes, so, and it says that it was only by the compassion of Vakreshwara Pandit that this great transformation took place in the heart of Devananda Pandit. So on these disappearance days like that, we can, just stop for a second and reflect on what is really important in our lives, because there's so much going on in every single one of you's life. We're all trying to achieve something, moving somewhere. There is so much disturbance and just trying to survive in this world, But sometimes we gotta just stop and appreciate what is the most important, association with devotees, these 6 loving exchanges, that is something that is so important. And this is the system. Serve to Vaishnavas is the best way of deliverance. And that's what the story shows, that even though he was reciting Srimad Bhagavatam, but he still didn't do anything. He didn't get bhakti, he didn't get appreciation of devotees. And we know from Nectar of Devotion and Hari Bhakti Vilasa, it is described how can one become a devotee, that no any amount of pious activities person performs can give them bhakti. It's only when they meet a pure devotee, the pure devotee can give them that bhakti, that seed of bhakti. And Krishna actually lives it, that honor, of giving bhakti, because once you have bhakti, you have control over Krishna. This is the only way we can control Krishna, because Krishna is he always in debt to his devotees. He is ready to do anything for them. He's Bhaktavatsala. So that, intent to have that bhakti, Krishna leaves it up to his devotees to give it away. And devotees giving it away because they have bhakti in their heart, so they feel compassionate towards others, just like Vakreshwara Pandit. He saw him and he knew that Lord Chaitanya rejected him and everyone else rejected him, but he had that compassion to him. And he absolutely won his heart with his gentleness and humility and with his beautiful qualities, and in this way, we can only get bhakti, not through reciting Srimad Bhagavatam, just reciting it, but without bhakti, not just by dry reciting of shastras or doing anything, but we need that association with devotees. And if we criticize them, then how Lord Chaitanya was saying, it's like drinking poison for our spiritual life. So we also know that Vakreshwara Pandit, he stayed in a house of Kashi Mishra in Puri, which is these days is Gambhira, and he used to serve deities there. They called Radhakant. And after his departure, those deities were installed by his disciple. And we also know that Chandrasekhar and Devananda Pandit were one of few of his disciples. And I have a photograph here. Apparently it is very difficult to get a photograph of Radhakant, of these deities from Gambhira, because they don't really let you to take photos, and the pujaris in Puri are very strict about it. If they see you with the phone, they can break it. They get very angry. But during one of the, Madhavananda Prabhu somehow managed to acquire one of those photos, and I just printed it on my printer, so if you want to have a look, so you can. This is the deities of Vakreshwara Pandit that he used to worship, and so that's all I wanted to say for today. So we're just really grateful that we have those days in our calendar, that we can remember all these special associates of Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and speak their glories, and it's very purifying. I think one of the best festivals we have in our year is Prabhupada Appearance and Disappearance Day, and it's like such an overwhelmingly beautiful time when everyone expressed their gratitude and, glorifying Prabhupada and just listening about his pastimes, and it's, just really beautiful. So, so I don't know, maybe there is any comments or questions. Maybe you can use my microphone.
There's a pastime during the battle of Kurukshetra where someone had been around and illegally killed all the sons, and who was that? Ashwatthama. And Krishna said, kill him. Yeah. But Draupadi was there. And Draupadi said, no, he's got a mother also, and she's going to suffer. So she said, he has to be punished, but we don't kill him. So I was thinking, it was a little bit like that same rasa you were talking about with Lord Chaitanya, who rejected Devananda Pandit, but Vakreshwara, being the devotee of Lord Chaitanya, showed more mercy to him, really. So I was thinking like that Draupadi showed more mercy, like Krishna allowed that to happen. Similar.
Yes, 100%. Yeah, thank you. I think it's the same with Jagai and Madai also. Lord Chaitanya was going to kill them. He got his Sudarshana chakra out, and then Lord Nityananda appealed to him. So, thank you. Is there, and I think it's that compassion, that's Srimati Radharani, that's her heart, bhakti. So that's why, because she was present in the heart of, because it's both of them in Lord Chaitanya. That's why Lord Chaitanya is so merciful and kind and compassionate, because that's her, her heart there. Anyone else?
I wanted just to thank you also for emphasizing to us the importance of being really careful and appreciative of the other devotees. That it's so easy just to take one another for granted. But actually, there's so many scriptures, isn't it? I don't remember the names, but many scriptures where it describes how you can try and please Krishna. Maybe you'll succeed, maybe not. But if you please his devotee, it's guaranteed. So, but to be open with one another is not so easy.
Yes, it is. Yeah, it's just nice to see sometimes beautiful examples of senior devotees, how they show us how to do it. It's, Okay, well, thank you everyone for your attention and being here. Hare Krishna. Vakreshwara Pandit ki jai.